What's more embarrassing, Milli Vanilli or Ashley Simpson?
Oh, good gosh.
Since we do have a music theme this week, I have a quick story. Years ago, U2 came and played at Soldier Field. And I got a call from one of the hotels downtown, the director of operations, Sam. He was like, I have a big VIP band staying with me, and they're requesting this specific wine that your company has, but I need it within an hour. What can you do? So I drove all the way down to the warehouse on a Saturday, got stuck in traffic, drove another hour back, so I was already late, got Sam the case of wine, and I'm like, I've got to know, like, who is this for?
Yeah.
And he says, all I can say is it starts with a U and has a number. And I say, oh my God, I can't believe I just like got to do an amazing errand for Bono. And he's like, oh, no. This isn't U2. This is UB40. And which makes sense because they love their red wine.
I could just see the look in your face like, oh.
There goes a Saturday for UB40.
Oh my goodness. Well, set us up as we're heading to this fantastic interview.
So we are about to talk to Roger Jansen, who has a lot of experience in the music industry as a manager, as a promoter, as a club owner. And I'm excited to get to talking to him.
We're going to dive into his experiences in Chicago, elsewhere, bands he's worked with, all that. So stick around.
Our next guest has decades in the entertainment industry. He started as one of the youngest venue club owners in the country, where he booked and promoted some of the biggest touring acts for years. From there, he launched KMA Management in 1996, where he would also work in tandem with Warner Brothers while building up KMA. He is the founder of the famous music festival MOBfest, which launched so many artists to the next level. And on top of that, he is a teacher at DePaul University. Please welcome Roger Jansen.
Ta-da!
Yay!
Ta-da! Are there
Roger.
horns? Can we get some trumpets?
We'll get some sound effects in here.
All right. Great.
Well, to start off, Roger, in your journey has been fantastic. And one thing we like to focus on here at Sea Level Up is origin stories, leadership stories, and really that journey, because we're all on a journey in whatever career field we do choose. But I'm very curious. You started very young as a nightclub owner in Chicago.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration behind that venture, and what are those early challenges that you learned from?
That's a good one, because long story short, I was in school. I was at Columbia, and I was an intern at the nightclub. So I had a tiny little desk in the corner. I was helping with the talent buyer. I was updating the calendar. I was working on putting ads in the different newspapers. And back then it wasn't email. Nothing was electronic, right? It was licking stamps and hanging posters up on the lampposts outside for a few blocks or whatever. So I was the intern at the nightclub, and the boss, the two owners of the club, decided whilst I was there that they were looking to get out. They were looking to sell the venue. So it sort of struck a chord with me, and it sparked this interest that came over me to just explore that. And then one of the owners was moving to LA to pursue an acting career. The other guy was pretty much checked out. So I went back to my neighbors where I grew up, and I was just lucky because my neighbor owned a bank, and I went to him and I said, how does a 22-year-old kid borrow, 6 figures to buy a nightclub? So then the conversation started, and he's like, well, you're going to need to collateralize your loan, and you have, whatever. Long story short, my parents had gotten divorced. My mom got a condo out of the settlement of the divorce. So she was happy to give her 21-year-old son her condo as collateral for a loan so he could buy a nightclub. bless her heart. Right. So that's kind of what happened. My mom signed over and collateralized a loan through this bank who we happened to know the owners. So, I suppose that helped, but everything was done pretty quickly. I got the loan and I went from being the intern in the little corner desk to being everyone's boss. And that was a massive shift, right? A dynamic shift, both in terms of hierarchy and then who's in charge. And then all of a sudden I had, 20 employees, all older than me. And I dove in and I became this like young nightclub owner. I truth be told, I wasn't excited about, the liquor license and dry goods inventory and payroll schedule and all that. I was interested in the promotions and the talent buying and the artists and the creative side of things. Right. So I was like, man, I want to, promote these concerts. I want to create events. What I learned was payroll taxes and scheduling and dry goods inventory and liquor commissioner and all of the things that go with owning a bar/restaurant. I mean, we didn't serve food, but it was a lot. I learned a lot on the fly. I had some help with, local owners that took me under their wing, if you will, and kind of showed me a lot about how this whole thing works. And I kind of dove in. So that's how I started. Whilst I was there, I was working with artists. I was working with a couple of bands. I had done some work. I started working with Warner Brothers Records as a regional A&R scout. So it all sort of culminated in this like entertainment business focus that I had. And then 4 years, going on to my 5th year, I got out of the nightclub and I kept my, and I kind of launched my management company there, but I kept working with artists. And then that's how I sort of parlayed into managing artists and tours and that kind of stuff. So I did get started really, really young, and I've been doing this now for a really long time. So I've managed to just stay in the game, like there've been, obviously COVID was a huge factor when you're doing live events that impacted us a little bit. And sometimes, it's not about winning the game. It's just about staying in the game. And if you can stay in the game and come out on the other side, you continue on. So that was always my philosophy.
Roger, speaking of promoting and managing, how did MOBfest come about? Can you kind of speak to the origin of that and how you came up with it? And
so that turned out to be pretty successful. Early on, I'm going pretty young again, like in my, when I was 21 and I had the club, there was this guy who approached me about doing a little music conference. There was one prior to that in Chicago called the Midwest. I think it was called the Midwest Music Conference. And it was run by these managers who ended up becoming massive managers back in the day. They had Korn and Limp Bizkit, all these huge bands. But these guys ran this music conference, and it was pretty cool. It was a series of panels and showcases. And the guys who ran it ended up moving to LA, so they kind of ditched Chicago. And then I was approached by somebody to do something similar, only his vision was very sort of collegiate. He wanted it to be at a school. He wanted to involve, which I'm all for, but he wanted it to be a not-for-profit organization. He wanted, and then I was tasked with bringing sponsors in, but sort of mixing the not-for-profit sort of ideology with sponsorships became challenging, especially when you're talking to like beer companies and liquor companies, the ones that sort of back in the day were big sponsors of events. And me and this guy just didn't quite see eye to eye on procedurally on how we could roll something out. So, we parted ways amicably. I kind of left that operation, which didn't last long. And I just, rounded up a small team, and we just brainstormed for a while, and we launched MOBfest in, I want to say 1997. We launched it, and the first year was a pretty massive success. We did it in summertime. We had the support of most major record companies. Everyone flew in for it. A lot of the A&R community were in town, other managers, lawyers, both from LA, New York, and regionally. People came in to see the shows and participate in the panels. And then we ran that thing for, I want to say maybe 15 years. So it did well. Towards the end, things shifted, the industry shifted, everything went digital. There was a time when Napster came in and was going to, destroy or interrupt the industry. And we sort of made it through all these little curveballs. And then at the very end, we partnered with the Hard Rock Hotel downtown Chicago and did our last event there. And at that point, sponsorships were different. Labels were engaged differently. They didn't quite have the budgets to fly all these people in. So things became a little more expensive on our end. And then we just decided to just kind of put it to bed and put it to rest. We had a great run. But that helped also launch my management company, because whilst all this was happening and labels were flying in, I was forging these relationships with the A&R community, with major labels, with the rest of the industry. And, I was also able to have my artists showcase during MOBfest and in front of a packed house filled with record label executives. I managed a massive metal band now called Disturbed out of Chicago. And our showcase, which was held at a little spot called Martyrs on Lincoln Avenue, I think a 300 cap little room, the band crushed it, and every record label was present in the house. And starting Monday morning, I was fielding calls from major labels wanting to sign the band. So it really helped launch both my management career, and it helped, kind of solidify that as a real staple in the music community, as a genuine conference that worked.
Yeah, I want to dive into that a little bit more, and ask you this before we take our break. But for one, by the way, huge Disturbed fan. So that's
funny.
awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit, because, whether it's going through the nightclub, through MOBfest, through where you are with your management company. Talk to me a little bit about, as a seasoned industry vet now, what leadership qualities has been essential to your success, and how do you approach mentoring and guiding younger talent? Because you have to have staff, right? So talk to me a little bit about those.
So, yeah, it's interesting, because especially in the artist management side of things, right? Like you're working with a lot of egos, right? You're working with insecurities. You're working with people who have to believe they're the best, which, it's part of what drives them. And sometimes conversations become a little bit delicate and and you have to be the cheerleader, and you have to inspire them, and you have to, pull them through when things are really down. I have a client right now who's actually really in the dumps, and little things aren't working. The big things are, but the little things that aren't working are really getting them down. So I have to get in there and, sort of prop them up and make them feel great, and find the right, the genuine ways to show a spotlight on the things that are working. And frankly, it becomes sometimes absolutely exhausting, right? So I pick a team and I bring people in that I also feel have these qualities, sort of like these, maternal, paternal instincts to like help and nurture, and then have to sometimes be firm. And it's an interesting business in that, you're selling a product, but the product is intellectual property. It's music, it's art. and it's oftentimes, it's interesting because it's very subjective to the creator, but it's very objective to the rest of the world. And in that gap, sometimes there's some, some feelings are hurt, or animosity is created, or tension, or whatever. And as a manager, especially when you also then start working with a record label, and you have an artist signed to a label, you are the buffer, like in between them, right? Because they both have their sort of procedurally ways of doing things, and sometimes those things don't align. So you, as the manager, you sit in the middle, and you're just like, you're fielding the call from the label, and maybe they're upset about something the artist is doing, or you're feeling the call from the artist and he's really upset about something the label's doing, and you have to keep the peace, but you have to be honest, and you have to be productive, and it's a hard, those are hard skills to inherently have. They are definitely developed in time, and as you learn how to maneuver conversations and manage expectations, you have to, and then you have to lead your team accordingly. You have to teach them and show them what the net what you want the net result to be positive. You want to accomplish whatever the goal is, and sometimes you have to navigate that conversation. Sometimes you have to make the artist feel like they had a part in making that decision, even though you know what the decision needs to be. At the end of the day, you need to work that delicately and carefully so that they come to that same decision and they're not feeling like it was forced on them. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but
no, that's relatable. Fantastic. And I want to dive a little bit more into that too, because managing a company, let alone managing people and talent, is a whole different beast. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to put you in Kreisel's corner with some rapid fire questions. Stick around.
Bring it.
Are you someone that juggles a lot of things in your life? Perhaps you have a large, colorful wardrobe, but nowhere fun to go? Do you like animals, but only if they're made of balloons? Then you belong with us at Cambridge Clown College, the Harvard of clown academics. At CCC, you will learn the fundamental life skills someone in the clowning arts needs, like walking on stilts, shooting water from a flower, and falling over for no reason. Within 6 to 8 weeks, you'll be performing at places like birthday parties, the circus, the rodeo, or maybe you'll just move to the sewer and scare children. So don't be a bozo and join us at Cambridge Clown College. This place is no joke.
All right, Roger, here we go with the rapid fire. What was Madonna's first #1 hit?
Ooh, was it, I mean, it's got to be way back, Into the Groove, or Into the Groove. Final answer. I don't know.
It is Holiday.
Holiday. That's the big one. Yeah, that was the other one I could think of.
Who's the best guitarist in history?
Ooh, and Tom Morello. I'm not biased just because I went to high school with him, but he's unbelievable.
Who wins in a soccer match, Brazil or Argentina?
Oh, I'm from Brazil, for the record, for the people listening. I hate to admit this, but as long as Messi's playing, he's going to win every time. But I'm a big Brazil fan.
What's more embarrassing, Milli Vanilli or Ashley Simpson?
Oh, good gosh. Great question. That's a funny question. Milli Vanilli. Because Ashley made a big mistake. Milli Vanilli, there were a lot more people involved in that one.
That's a good point. What's the best venue for live music?
In the world? In Chicago? In the country? Metro. Chicago's Metro. One of my faves.
And what is the best performance you've ever seen live?
Oh. Wow. And I'm an old guy, so I went and saw Rush, a band that no one's gonna know about in this day and age. But I want to say, I want to go back to like pre-auto-tune, pre-everything. I've got to say it's like one of these like old arena rock concerts that I used to go to as a kid, like Journey. I mean, my Def Leppard, Rush, like it was all live. There were no tracks involved. There's no auto-tune involved. It was just three or four or five guys on stage just doing it for real. And I don't, it's rare you see that in this day and age. I mean, the shows are great, but I just saw Billie Eilish a few nights ago. It was incredible. The show was magnificent. The production, the vocals, the musicianship, but who knows how many extra things are going on in the computers back there,
Right. Do you have a favorite film about music or the music biz?
Spinal Tap.
That's my answer too.
There's another one. There's another film that I would recommend if you love Spinal Tap. You need to see one called, oh my gosh, what was the band? It was similar to Spinal Tap, but it wasn't a parody. It was a real band. Anvil.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Anvil is like, you've got to watch. I think it's called Anvil, or and I'm gonna see if I can find Anvil, the story of Anvil. You got to watch that movie.
Oh, okay.
Because it is Spinal Tap without satire. So it's weirdly so sad and so honest and so funny that it's sort of one of my favorites. That's the one.
Oh, God. Well, I think I'll love that. I'll have to check that out. And then finally, the last question. What is the best album ever made?
Oh, man. Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I got to go way back. Look, I think Michael Jackson's Thriller was incredible, regardless of what Michael Jackson's all about. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Man, yeah, those are some of my tops.
Wonderful. Well, you survived Kreisel's Corner, Roger. Congratulations.
Did I?
I thought you were going to throw in Rush's Moving Pictures.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic
Yes.
album.
But JD, you can't be as old as I am.
I am older, my friend. I am older.
Man. I played in a rock band in high school, and we did side one of Moving Pictures as an encore. We covered it. Huge fan.
I don't envy the person who has to try to be Neil Peart.
I know, right?
In that cover band.
Yeah, that was my brother, actually.
Oh, wow. Well,
he crushed it.
I've got some interesting question for you. I guess you've worked in various roles, right?
Yep.
Including A&R, management, production. How do you think these diverse experiences influenced your understanding of the music industry and in your approach to artist development?
So you take a little bit from every experience, right? And because all of my experience, I have so many different experiences, from working from a major label to working as a nightclub owner to working. And also I was in a band that had a record deal as well years ago. So I was a musician, pseudo musician in a rock band. So I've done that too. So I speak all the different languages, and it allows me to be able to translate or process the conversation, quickly and effectively, because I get the artist perspective. I get the major label perspective. I get the manager's perspective. I get the talent buyer's perspective. I get the promoter's perspective. And, and I find myself often in the middle of these sort of, situations where we have to come out of this with the positive net result. And I feel like I am highly qualified to get to there quickly and efficiently because of those experiences I've had. I'm not one-sided here. I can shift and pivot when need be to understand the perspective of whoever it is that we're negotiating with or talking with or, working with or whatever.
Roger, what do you think of these TV shows like American Idol and The Voice? Do you feel like they're
so funny enough? I worked for
any sort of way.
I worked for The Voice and Idol. I consulted for The Voice.
Oh,
My
there you
friend
go.
Peter was one of the executive producers. And I helped set up private auditions with the producers of the show here in the Midwest. Look, everything's changed, right? When I was young, I would buy albums and cassettes, and now I'm streaming, and there was a time when you bought CDs, and then there was a time when you're buying MP3s for 99 cents, and now we're just streaming music. Like, everything changes. Recording process. When I learned how to engineer. I learned how to, work in a studio, 2-inch tape, analog, and now everything's Pro Tools and digital. Everything changes. Concerts change. Auto-tune has changed how we produce vocals and singers. Like, I get it. I think the worst thing AI is around the corner, right, for music. So I think, as the artistic community is the first to embrace and adapt. I think major labels are slower to do that. It's funny. I feel like American Idol and The Voice, when they launched and came out, there was so much criticism, but I feel like it gave a lot of opportunity to young singers and artists who would otherwise never have the opportunity. Kelly Clarkson, massive megastar, was born out of those shows, right? An Idol winner. Like, I support that. I think that, with skills that people possess, there's no right way to do any of it. And the band, I have a friend, Greg, who plays in the American Idol band. Like, they're incredible players. The singers that get on the show are incredible singers. I think it gave the world a whole new perspective on watching an artist grow from, not being known at all to all of a sudden having 6 million viewers on a major television show. And I think there's something pretty spectacular about that. Whether you like the process or not, it's spectacular that this is something that can take someone from obscurity to fame in a matter of months. I think that comes with its own inherent challenges, right? I mean, there's certainly been winners that have disappeared into the ether, if you will. I think there have been singers on the shows that were incredible that didn't quite land the right deal or the right push afterwards. It's just one more avenue to add to the list of avenues that people can take to try to, get some notoriety and do what they love to do, which is perform and sing. And there's nothing wrong with that.
It is fascinating just to think, I don't remember what the guy's last name, Adam, all of a sudden is touring with Queen.
Adam Lambert.
Yeah. Touring with Queen. And to go from an unknown to one of the most popular rock bands in history. It's fascinating to me.
It gave him, I had clients on the shows. I had a client on The Voice. She made it to top 12, maybe, I don't remember. And, and I don't want to name who she was. She turned out to not be a great person, unfortunately. And it was tough. I parted ways with her. Sometimes the show will highlight things about a contestant, because the thing that people need to remember if they do end up on these shows is it's a TV show. That's at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? You may think they care about the artist or they care about the career of the performer. Like, it's a television show. So they're going to spin that show, and they're going to edit and cut the footage in certain way to make somebody look how the producers of the show want that person to look. And I had an artist on there, and she, they pegged her as like, a diva, if you will. And that was her persona on the show that the producers sort of embellished and helped create. And it did not show her in a good light, and it was tough. And the truth is, what the show does is it really potentially magnifies who the people really are. So, you need to be you need to be your authentic self when you go on these things. And sometimes that authentic self causes some friction in the real world.
Well, and I've got one more question. I know Mike has one as well, but you're talking about the evolution of the business, right? To streaming. Now
Right.
what's coming into play a lot more over the last 18 months to 2 years is AI being
Right.
injected into the music industry, let alone blockchain, where it
Yep.
talks about different ownership.
Right.
Where do you see that going and influencing the industry?
So I had this conversation with an attorney the other day because AI is a beast, right? And it's a scary beast. There's software now where you can literally have AI compose an entire song, melodies, spit out the song with vocals. And what the heck is that? Like, you give it a prompt and it spits out a song. Like, how creative is that? And AI, unfortunately, is pulling things that already exist. So it's really tapping into intellectual property that belongs to people. Human beings created it, and now AI is just sucking from that, right? The flip side of this conversation is that I believe every artist and every contemporary songwriter is pulling from things they've heard in their past. They're also being affected and inspired by, or sometimes they even, quite frankly, cop it a little bit. Oh, I love this riff here. I'm going to take that and create my own version. I think every piece of great contemporary art has been influenced and has been touched by some other piece of art somewhere. And AI weirdly does exactly that. It pulls from things that already exist. I don't think that's much different than how human brains work. I think there are a lot of songs that you can listen to and find the similarities with previous existing older songs. I mean, Dua Lipa, her entire record, I think we could point to some song in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that she pulled from, and some are blatant, ripoffs. But I back to AI, I think that it's not going anywhere. It's not going to go away. So we better figure out a way to embrace it and use it in the most positive way possible. I have a client who's an incredible producer, and he sings songs, and he wanted to demonstrate a song with a female vocalist. And instead of having a woman come in and sing it, he had AI convert his vocal track into a female singer. And he put it back into the track, and now he's got a demo of the song with a female singing it. Is that cheating? I don't know. No, it's just what AI is capable of doing. And the sooner we figure out how to utilize it in the most positive way, the better, because it's not going anywhere. And I'll say that from songwriting to marketing. Like, AI is going to be part of the new chapter of all of this.
Roger, one last question for you. What do you have coming up in the coming months and year?
I'm hoping to have a short little break here during the holidays and turn off my phone and turn off my computer for a minute. It doesn't always work out that way. As I get a little older, there are certain things that I really love to do, and I'd like to lean into it, both in business and in my personal life. And then there's certain things that are just slowly becoming a little more taxing on my patience. Ideally, I'd like to bring in some young managers with clients and help build a small community of entrepreneurs that can all benefit from each other's skills. And I like to sort of focus on building more of the company as opposed to building more clients, and bringing in some young management skills into my small little world. So that's what I'm shooting for the next year or so.
Well, that was fun. That was a good time talking to Roger.
Yeah,
He's got such great perspective.
I could hear his stories, and I'm sure, get him some bourbon, and those stories are going to be even more wonderful because he's been there. He's done that in the Chicago scene and, across the music scene in general.
I also thought it was really interesting hearing him talk about The Voice and American Idol and how those are truly opportunities for people that don't have a clear path on how to show their talent in a major way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I've never really watched The Voice, friends and family who do. Now I want to look. I want to watch. I want to watch with a different lens after hearing him.
Yeah. And they've got great chairs.
They swivel.
The swivel chair.
Well, it was great to have him on, and a big thank you to Roger again for joining us. If you want to listen to past episodes of Sea Level Up, you can go to jamesdwayne.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.